In the right place at the right time. Our note's going to be this one when we get there. I'm Sandy O from Emma's Revolution.
And I'm Pat Humphreys. Great to see you all.
Good morning, good day, and good evening. We've got people from all around the globe here for the daily antidote of song. And you know how we like to start it, whether we're hosting or joining to lead a song. We're going to sing you in with our hello song. And it goes doom da doom doom da. Doom ga doom doom ga doom ga. Yep. And you can sing hello, 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 hello. This is the way we like to start the day. We're gonna sing hello and hey yeah. And you can always say hello, 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 hello. You're on the daily antidote of song. We hope you're gonna sing along, and hello to the Facebook people watching today. Hello, 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 hello. There's Jojo, our fearless leader, our tech host today. Great to see you. There is Shruti joining us all the way from India. Hello, 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 hello. Kevin's in DC playing his flute, and Harriet is in Chicago with the green behind her. And there is Delhi, and let's say hello. Oh, hello, 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 hello. Becky is here. Nancy is here. Susan is here from Cincinnati. Arlene is here from Berkeley. And there are Clive and Ruth. Hello, 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 hello. Sheila from Florida. Kate in Virginia. Cricket is here. Hello, James Harkless. We love you. Nice to see you. Let's say hello. Oh, hello, 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 hello. Bob is here with a lamp. And Hoda is here. And Kira is here. And there is Luda from Victoria, BC, giving you a heart. Hello, hello, hello. The curly tops are here. Storm is here. Doug from Underhill, Vermont. And Carolyn telling us all it's day 1191. Hello, 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 hello. Bonnie in Boise. There's Kevin. Hello, Kevin. Nice to see you. There's Mabel with the bears. Let's say hello. Hello, 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 hello. And the butterfly, Susan in Seattle. Gary is there, and Annette in California. Kathy's joining from Colorado. Hello, 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 hello. Ingrid is here. Jane is in Texas. Hello to Lily. Hello to Busy. Hello to Karen with the mountain in Oregon. Hello, 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 hello. Carolyn in DC. And LMG and Bob in rainy Massachusetts. And Leah in Illinois. And we're gonna say hello to Susan. Hello, hello, hello. Sherry's in New Hampshire. Ingrid is here. Sandy in North Carolina. And Fred in Silver Spring. Fred used to be our neighbor when we were there. Hello, 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 hello. Sandra's in Maryland. Lo is here. Laris all the way from the UK. Kate in Central Florida. And Sarah, hello to you in Texas. Hello, 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 hello. Everyone who's coming in right now, if we have missed you, we're still saying hello. And it's time for us to sing a song for you. So let's say hello, 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 hello. There it is. And please welcome the wonderful Shruti to join us today and host the show.
Well, thank you for singing us in, and welcome Pat and Sandy. Thank you for everything that you do. I'm so moved by. I got a sneak peek at the song today, and I'm so moved. So, what are we singing today? And thank you for doing that. And over back to you.
Thank you. Because it's summertime, I was thinking about this song that I wrote after Pat and I had been in Maine to do some gigs. And Pat had been in Maine years and years before that had an impact on why this song came to be.
Yeah, my professor at Kent State, when I was a student there in the late 70s, early 80s, had a project where senior students could go and do an independent project in being an independent artist. I studied visual arts when I was in college, and we could tell you more about that after the song. But This is after a return trip that Sandy and I did together decades later in our observations of just what was going on the little island at Deer Isle, Maine.
So the chorus part is really easy. It's just ooh. So that part I know you'll get, and I feel like you will hopefully pick up on the verse tune as well. So maybe we'll sing through one verse so you hear it, and then we'll do the whole song because the verse tune stays the same. Here's one of the verses. 2, 3, 4. I set the pots in early morning. The work is hard, the air is cold. The sea can change without a warning. Its life can make a young man old. I take my wages, oops, to the market, wrong words. I take my wages home each night, while up the river sits a fortune in stone and lumber out of sight. Ooh. So those are the oohs. That's the tune of the verse, and as you can hear, it's kind of like dropping into the story of people who we met or encountered or just observed when we were there in Maine. So we'll start it the way it starts. A little hard to drop into it in the middle. Coast of Maine. I set the pots in early morning. The work is hard, the air is cold. The sea can change without a warning. This life can make a young man old. I take my catch down to the market. I take my wages home each night, while up the river sits a fortune in stone and lumber out of sight. Ooh. I do this work my mother taught me. I cannot read, but I can sew. I make these pieces for the tourists, a souvenir before they go. The months are short, the needs are many, and summer sails must last the year, while up the river sits a fortune. Hungry silence lingers here. Ooh. This second home will be their haven. They have the means to build their dream. I am the one who pours the concrete, who lays each joist and fills each seam. But at my home the stairs are open. There isn't time or cash to spare, while up the river sits a fortune, and there's nobody living there. The eagle's nest beyond the reaches of city lights and a human hand. They struggle here beside the people who fish the sea and farm the land. But once the eagle nearly vanished from poison oceans, soil and rain, a human and a bird's returning, surviving on the coast of Maine. A human and a bird's returning, surviving on the coast of Maine.
Oh my goodness. Just inviting all of us to breathe this song in and breathe this intention in. Thank you, Pat and Sandy. Like you always create this magic with your words and your soundscapes, and so grateful. You think you can take us? I'm sitting on, um, the idea of the song myself. The moment you shared it, I was in a place last weekend, very similar to the one that you've described in this song. I mean, one might assume that in the U.S. or in some other country like that, which is has a bigger GDP, these places would exist, but they exist here in India as well. So I think we're just sitting in. I'm sitting in that. In the shared struggle and really seeing how we're all really just one, and how these struggles stretch from Maine to Mumbai, where I was last weekend. Would you like to share that story and I don't know, reflect on the song, whichever way?
Yeah, I also want to say just at the start that we all want to be able to go to beautiful places, and we all should be able to, and we all also should be able to live in beautiful places. And have our lives be sustained. And as I said when you mentioned it before we started, this is nothing that a guaranteed monthly income couldn't solve, and universal health care. And in our country, that's continually what we are dealing with. And I can speak to it as musicians. I always say that we know the pandemic turned the world upside down because we were more financially secure during the pandemic than in the rest of our 20 years of performing together.
Well, at least in the first year.
At least in the first year. And that was the high pandemic, which was, most intense for most everyone. But people understood that musicians were suddenly had no ground under our feet. And the truth is we don't really have ground under our feet at all anytime. And so the same for these folks living in an area that has become a tourist place. And I think about that second verse, which I basically just made up that story from seeing this shop that is about bringing together artisans from that area. And they created a large sort of gathering shop where they could each show their wares. And there was this woman who was making pot holders. And I thought about it that probably her mother made something for tourists, and probably her grandmother, and even perhaps her great grandmother. And so this has been going on a long time. And so it isn't to make any harshness against going somewhere beautiful. It's really to say that we can support each other differently than we do in a country like this with a major GDP, and also in your country, as you're saying.
There is that tension, that ongoing tension, because these places are dependent upon tourism, and they're grateful to have that income, but there is always that in the off season, knowing that because of properties that people who with more wealth are able to acquire in the area, then just the impact on the daily lives of folks there after the tourist season is difficult. Of course, it raises the cost of owning property and even renting property. I found that when I was living in the Hudson Valley. There are many places there, especially around Woodstock, where there's this rather vast income discrepancy, and I actually had a person say to me, "I can make more money renting my place in 3 months in the summer than I can renting it to you at a lower rate all year round." So what's
Wow.
in it for me? I know it was kind of rough, and there are people who have lived for generations on that island and have lived off the land there, but even that is difficult at times, and it comes and goes, the ability to to lobster and whatnot. But I was just living with the tension of that after having been there for a summer and been very generously hosted by this family who lives there for generations upon generations full time. I lived in a tent for that summer with my girlfriend, and it was a really, really moving experience just to be there in such a spectacularly beautiful place, and to get to work on my artwork there, but also there was some heartbreak even when I was young, but coming back and observing that from an adult's perspective, or a more experienced adult's perspective, I have to admit the heartbreak was a little greater for me. And I spent the whole driving trip from Maine back to Maryland, where we were living at the time, telling sad stories about my experience there, and then how difficult it was to see the impact of tourism while we had just been there. Obviously, I mean, we'd been there doing gigs, but still, we were there doing gigs because there are people that have the resources to hire us to do gigs. So it's this thing that we live with.
Yeah. We're all in it, and we're all in it to make some change, obviously.
Yeah.
And I appreciate all the comments that people are making in the chat too. Yeah, I mean, we can do this. We could live on this planet differently, which is why something like the Daily Antidote of Song is so amazing, because we are now living on the planet differently. We can join you every day at 9 a.m. our time, or noon, or 10 p.m. Shruti's time.
Yeah. I saw that somewhere that wages for the top 1% during this pandemic period increased by 1,014 and 20%, 1,420%, and wages for workers have stagnated for decades.
It's shocking.
Yeah, I was just
It's
like,
shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so there are things that we could be doing about this.
Yeah. And I think just about the song, like I'm, because we did teach the song. I saw that LMG put in the note that we had taught it while we were doing our pandemic time weekly Learn an MS Revolution song program, but we hadn't played it since. And I think one thing that is interesting to me is how much like the song feels like being on the water to me. It's sort of, it's sort of still in a way, but every once in a while there's that drop, like a wave or something. I don't know. Anyway, the feel when I sing this song, I just really am transported over to the coast, and I love that about it, and I love getting to sing it for you all. And I appreciate that people were willing to sing along. It's a sing along only, only on the ooze, but also, I think the tune is pretty easy, so maybe folks felt like they could sing it with us, which I hope.
And it's totally a zone as well. It really does sound like the waves washing up against the shore. Your guitars, and grateful for your sharings. And I was also reflecting on some of my own learnings with these communities. Like for instance, when I started bargaining one day with a small vendor, my partner said, "Hey, what are you gonna get? Like, just give them what they want." Like, and that was a big lesson for me. And I've never bargained with small time vendors unless they're really like quoting something ludicrous, which they rarely do because it's really, and so little learnings here and there. And then there are friends who live in these places who are very generous with their homes and say, come whenever. And so I think these small ways of being, even if one is on land like this, or one does have a second or third home, I think there are still ways of being that can be gracious and open-hearted, and that can do something to not make the world an even more unequal place than it is. I don't know.
Oh,
just
yeah.
yeah.
Definitely. And it goes in the opposite direction too. I feel like sometimes people want to come to the city, and the city is too expensive for people, right?
Yeah.
For people from outside the city. And so there are lots of ways that we can work together, and that we do want to work together to balance up this world. I just feel like it's so obvious sometimes, even especially if you take a little step away and have some time to just regroup with yourself, in nature or something. I come back to the life, and I think I come back to the life we've created in the world here, and I think this is what we're doing. There are so many other options about how we could be on this planet. This isn't to lay the blame anywhere, but really to just elevate the story and let us all have a chance to say, oh yes, that's how I'm addressing this, or this is a way that I could think about this differently. Yeah.
And when we're in it, when we have the opportunity to look at it, then we can find those opportunities, small and large, both on a daily personal basis and on a structural basis, and be mindful of how are we paying into the structure that perpetuates this, and what can we do to divest from that and to actually put resources and energy and time into shifting things and creating a stronger infrastructure for people with fewer resources.
And thank you for shining a light on all of this with your songs. I think the power of, whenever I've heard you, I always go so deep with the lyrics that you bring and with the tunes, and it always pushes pushes me personally to reflect, and for that I'm so deeply grateful. So I'm wondering, Pat and Sandy, if you'd like to take us through the song again, either a couple of verses or maybe the whole thing, and we just breathe it in again.
Thank you, and thank you so much for those sweet words about our music. We're
Yeah, thank you.
honored to hear that. Thank you.
And the conversation is just so important. Thank you so much for your perspectives from where you are. We're not on the ground there, so we can't see, so we rely on you. Thank you. Really appreciate that.
I set the pots in early morning. The work is hard, the air is cold. The sea can change without a warning. This life can make a young man old. I take my catch down to the market. I take my wages home each night, while up the river sits a fortune in stone and lumber out of sight. Ooh. I do this work my mother taught me. I cannot read, but I can sew. I make these pieces for the tourists, a souvenir before they go. The months are short, the needs are many, and summer sails must last the year, while up the river sits a fortune. Hungry silence lingers here. Ooh. The second home will be their haven. They have the means to build their dream. I am the one who pours the concrete, who lays each joist and fills each seam. But at my home the stairs are open. There isn't time or cash to spare, while up the river sits a fortune, and there's nobody living there. Ooh. The eagle's nest beyond the of city light and human hand. They struggle here beside the people who fish the sea and farm the land. But once the eagle nearly vanished from poison ocean, soil and rain, a human and a bird's returning, surviving on the coast of Maine. A human and a bird's returning, surviving on the coast of Maine.
Let's give it up for Pat and Sandy from Emma's Revolution, and all of the empathy and love that they carry for the world. May it enter our hearts and the hearts of those who we meet today and this week. May we touch everyone with the power of this song and other songs, and just this love that seems to be coming out of the energy of these words. Thank you, Pat and Sandy. So grateful for both of you and what you bring into the world. Take care. Thank you, Joe.
so much.
Great to be with you. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, and thank you, Joe, for doing everything that you do in running tech today. Thank you, Kevin and DC and Delhi and Becky and Susan G and Arlene and Clive and Bruce and Sheila and one curly top, two curly tops, three curly tops, and Kate and Cricket and Mr. James Harkless and Bob and Luda and Storm and Doug. And thank you, Carolyn and Bonnie and Kevin, Ennis and Susan and Laris and Bob and Mabel and the Bears. And thank you, Anne and Gary and Annette and Fred and Ingrid and Kathy and Jane. And thank you, Busy Graham and Julie and Hoda and Sandra and Sarah and Karen and Caroline. Thank you, LMG and Leah and Nancy and Shari Shakti and Lo and Moon and Penny and Anne. Thank you, Bob, I know it's raining where you are. Thank you to everyone who has been here and who constantly makes this possible. May you spread light into the world. Thank you to our Facebook Live audience. Let's give them a wave to whoever is tuning in later. And take care, everyone.